What if I told you there's a cafe where you and your friend can sit at the same table, yet be in two different countries at the same time? Or that there's a library where you can check out a book in the US and finish reading it in Canada, all without leaving your seat? Imagine crossing a border not with a passport, but by simply stepping over a painted line on the floor, or waiting for a plane to land before you can walk from Spain into Britain. Why do these places exist? How do people live with borders running through their living rooms, their schools, even their runways? And what happens when the law, your taxes, or even a time zone changes with a single step? This time, we're into the world's weirdest borders, where international lines aren't just on maps, but run through bedrooms, markets, and even airport runways. In this video, we'll explore 5 of the most bizarre border crossings on Earth, from Baarle, a town where the border between Belgium and the Netherlands zigzags through homes and shops, to the Four Corners Monument, where you can high-five yourself into 4 US states at once. If you're fascinated by geography, love weird travel stories, or just want to know what it's like to live with one foot in 2 countries, you're in the right place. We'll learn the wild history behind these tangled borders, meet the people who call these places home, and reveal the hilarious, sometimes chilling, realities of life on the edge, where your front door might decide your nationality, your taxes, or even your bedtime. You'll see how borders can be both barriers and bridges, shaping communities in ways you've never imagined. And by the end, you'll have stories to tell that will blow your friends' minds. Then get ready. We're about to cross some of the world's weirdest borders, no passport required. Welcome to Baarle Hertog and Baarle Nassau, the world's most mind-boggling border town, where international lines zigzag through streets, homes, and even bedrooms. This isn't just a cartographer's nightmare or a trivia buff's delight. It's a living, breathing community where the concept of crossing the border can mean stepping over a line painted on the floor. Here, the border isn't a fence or a wall, but a series of white crosses and brass markers embedded in the pavement, winding through the town like a drunken snake. But how did this patchwork of enclaves come to be? And what's it like to live in a place where your front door might determine your nationality, your taxes, and even your closing hours? Let's take a deep dive into the fascinating, often hilarious, and surprisingly harmonious world of Baarle. To understand this bizarre geography, we need to travel back to the Middle Ages, a time when land was power, and power was often divided, traded, or inherited in the most convoluted ways imaginable. Back in time, there was 2 feudal lords, the Duke of Brabant, now part of Belgium, and the Lord of Breda, now in the Netherlands. Through a series of land swaps, inheritances, and political marriages, the territory around Baarle became a checkerboard of parcels, each belonging to one lord or the other. Baarle's patchwork persisted. When Belgium became independent from the Netherlands in 1830, the 2 countries tried to sort out the mess. Decades of negotiations, treaties, and exasperated diplomats later, they finally agreed. The medieval boundaries would stand. If you look at a map, Baarle looks like someone spilled a bag of country-shaped confetti over the southern Netherlands. The borderlines twist and turn, sometimes running through houses, shops, and even a single room. In Baarle, the law of the land depends on which country you're standing in, sometimes down to the square meter. Each enclave is governed by its own country's laws, police, and municipal services. This means 2 mayors, 2 town councils, 2 police forces, and 2 sets of everything from street signs to garbage collection. Here's an example. If your house straddles the border, your nationality, and which country's laws apply depends on where your front door is. In the past, some residents moved their front doors a few meters to take advantage of lower taxes or more favorable regulations. Taxes, business hours, and even fireworks laws differ between the 2 countries. For years, Dutch shops had to close earlier than Belgian ones. So some clever business owners simply moved their entrances to other side, allowing them to stay open later. If a crime is committed, the police from the relevant country handle it. But what if the crime scene straddles the border? Then, both police forces might show up, and jurisdiction is determined by the location of the front door or the majority of the property. Garbage collection, utilities, and even postal services are similarly divided. Residents might have 2 different garbage bins, one for each country. The border is marked by white crosses and brass plaques embedded in the pavement, winding through streets, shops, and homes. Some houses have 2 addresses, one Belgian, one Dutch. In some cases, The border runs right through the middle of a living room, with a line painted on the floor for clarity and, let's be honest, for the novelty. There's even a legend of this place. It says that one time a family reportedly celebrated New Year's Eve twice, once on Belgian time, then an hour later Dutch time, simply by moving from one side of the house to the other. Children attend schools in either country, and sports teams often include players from both sides. The community is tightly knit, with residents priding themselves on their cross-border friendships and cooperation. Dutch is spoken on both sides, but there are subtle differences in accent and vocabulary. Most residents are bilingual in the practical sense. They can switch between Belgian and Dutch customs as easily as they cross the street. Baarle hosts joint festivals, markets, and cultural events, often celebrating the town's unique status. The annual border run is a local favorite, with runners crossing the border multiple times in a single race. Baarle's unique geography has made it a magnet for tourists, geography geeks, and anyone with a taste for the unusual. Visitors flock to Baarle to see the famous border markers, take photos with one foot in each country, and marvel at the houses, shops, and even cafes split by the international line. Guided tours explain the town's history and quirks, and local museums showcase maps, artifacts, and stories from centuries of border oddities. Their popular activities include following the border trail through town, snapping selfies at the most bizarre crossings, visiting the Baarle Museum, which delves into the town's tangled past, shopping for Belgian chocolate and Dutch cheese, sometimes in the same store. Baarle is a patchwork of borders, so tangled you might need a GPS just to find your own front door. But what if, instead of weaving through a maze of enclaves, you could stand in 4 different states at once? We travel to the Four Corners Monument, where New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, and Colorado meet in a single, sun-baked point on the map. It's the only place in the U.S. where you can high-five yourself into 4 states at the same time, and the border is marked not by fences, but by a bronze disc and a lot of triumphant selfies. Here, the borders of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah converge at a single, mathematically precise point, at least according to the U.S. government surveyors. The monument itself is a simple affair: a circular plaza, a bronze marker, and a grid of lines radiating out to the 4 winds. But the stories that gather here are anything but ordinary. The tale of Four Corners begins not with a grand vision, but with a bureaucratic headache. In the mid-19th century, as the United States gobbled up territory and drew lines across the map, surveyors were dispatched to mark the boundaries of the new states and territories. Armed with little more than compasses, chains, and a stubborn sense of purpose, they trudged through mesas and canyons, staking out borders that would one day become the stuff of road trip legend. The original marker, set in 1912, was a modest sandstone shaft, later replaced by the more photogenic bronze disc that draws crowds today. Today, this monument is a pilgrimage site for the geographically curious, the selfie-obsessed, and anyone with a penchant for novelty. The plaza is often ringed with vendors from the Navajo Nation and Mountain Ute tribe, selling turquoise jewelry, fry bread, and hand-woven blankets. The air is thick with the scent of sage and the low hum of conversation in English, Navajo, and Spanish. On any given day, you might see a newlywed couple in matching t-shirts, a group of motorcyclists revving their engines for a photo op, or a lone traveler lying flat on the marker, limbs akimbo, grinning up at the sky. For the people who live and work here, the monument is more than a curiosity, it's a livelihood. Local artisans set up shops at dawn, their tables laden with silverwork and pottery, each piece a testament to centuries of tradition. Children dart between stalls, chasing stray dogs or helping their parents with sales. Rangers from the Navajo Parks and Recreation Department keep a watchful eye, offering directions and the occasional bit of trivia. Did you know the marker is actually about 1,800 feet off from the true geodetic intersection? Most visitors don't mind. The illusion is part of the magic. Around you'll hear the story of Old Man Yazzie, a Navajo silversmith who claimed he could sense the energy of the 4 states converging beneath his feet. He'd tell wide-eyed children that if you stood on the marker at sunrise, You could feel the Earth's heartbeat, a steady, ancient thrum that connected all things. Whether it was the power of the land or just the caffeine from his morning coffee, Yazie's legend lingers in the air, adding a touch of mysticism to the otherwise pragmatic geometry of the place. The Four Corners Monument is more than a roadside oddity. It's a microcosm of the American West's tangled history and enduring spirit. The site sits on Navajo land, with the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation just a stone's throw away. Revenue from entrance fees and vendor permits supports local schools, infrastructure, and cultural programs. In summer, the parking lot is filled with RVs and rental cars from every corner of the country, their occupants eager to snap a photo and buy a slice of fry bread. For some, it's a bucket list stop. For others, a spiritual waypoint. As the sun dips low, painting the mesas in gold and crimson, the monument takes on a quiet grandeur. Shadows stretch across the plaza, and the day's last visitors linger, reluctant to leave this improbable crossroads. Somewhere, a child's laughter rings out, echoing off the stone. The Four Corners is a place where boundaries blur, where stories overlap, and where, for a moment, you can stand in four worlds at once. Here, the border is a gentle suggestion, a line you cross with a single step. But sometimes borders aren't just outside. They run right through the heart of a building. Next up, a library where you can read in the US and check out your book in Canada, all without leaving your seat. Step through the front door of the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, and you're not just entering a building. You're crossing an international punchline. Here, in the sleepy towns of Derby Line, Vermont, and Stansted, Quebec, the US-Canada border isn't a fence or a checkpoint. It's a black line running across the reading room floor, slicing through bookshelves and bisecting the opera stage. Patrons joke that you can check out a novel in the United States and finish the last chapter in Canada without ever leaving your seat. The only passport required is a library card and maybe a sense of humor. The Haskell isn't just a curiosity, it's a deliberate act of international friendship. Built in 1904, the library and opera house were gifts from Martha Stewart Haskell and her son, designed to serve both communities equally. The architects, perhaps with a wink, placed the reading room in the US and the books in the next country. The opera stage is in Canada, but most of the seats are crossing the border. Marked by a thick black line is both a literal and symbolic reminder that culture and curiosity don't stop for customs. Over the decades, this library has played host to more than just readers and opera lovers. During Prohibition, locals whispered that the library's unique geography made it a handy spot for cross-border mischief, though the staff, ever diplomatic, claimed to know nothing. The building's dual identity has weathered world wars, shifting immigration policies, and the occasional bureaucratic headache. Yet, the doors have remained open, a testament to the stubborn optimism of border towns. On any given day, you'll find a gentle choreography unfolding inside the Haskell. Canadian children scamper across the line to join Story Hour, while American retirees browse French novels. The staff, fluent in both languages and border etiquette, greet everyone with a smile and a gentle reminder. Please don't use the library as a shortcut to avoid customs. Weddings, book clubs, and even international chess matches have all played out beneath the watchful gaze of portraits that seem to wink at the absurdity of it all. Local people say that there's a spectral figure said to appear on foggy evenings, shelving books with supernatural speed. Some say she's a former librarian who couldn't bear to choose between her two countries. Others insist she's just a trick of the light, or perhaps a reflection of the building's own split personality. Either way, the legend adds a dash of mystery to late-night study sessions and keeps the children on their best behavior. The Haskell is more than a building. It's a living experiment in cooperation. Businesses tout their proximity to the world's only international library and opera house, drawing tourists eager to snap a selfie with one foot in each country. The annual opera season brings music lovers from both sides, and the library's event calendar is a patchwork of bilingual readings, cross-border lectures, and joint celebrations. Even during tense political moments, The Haskell stands as a quiet rebuke to division. Its doors open to all with a love of learning and a willingness to share. I thought I'd seen every possible border oddity after standing with one foot in Vermont and the other in Quebec, but then I discovered the Diomede Islands. Imagine waving to your neighbor across the water and across the international date line, where they're already living tomorrow. We head now to Little Diomede, a speck of American land in the Bering Strait, staring across a narrow band of frigid water at Big Diomede, Russia's sentinel. The two islands are so close you can see the weather rolling in from the other side, yet they might as well be worlds apart. Between them lies not just a border, but the international date line, a 21-hour leap into the future, visible on a clear day. Big Diomede and Little Diomede are separated by just 2.4 miles of often icy sea, but the gulf between them is measured in hours in history. On one side, Russian cliff rise stark and uninhabited. On the other, a cluster of homes clings to the American shore, where the Inupiat community of Diomede lives in a world shaped by wind, ice, and tradition. The islands are so close that in winter, when the sea freezes, it's possible, though not exactly legal, to walk from today into tomorrow, from the United States into Russia, with only the crunch of snow beneath your boots to mark the crossing. Big Diomede, known as Ratmanov Island in Russia, is a military outpost, off-limits to visitors and shrouded in a certain Cold War mystique. Little Diomede, by contrast, is home to about 100 hardy souls, their lives dictated by the rhythms of the sea and sky. The islands share a language of weather and wildlife. Walrus, polar bears, and migratory birds pay no heed to borders or time zones. Yet, for the people of Little Diomede, the Russian shore is a distant neighbor, close enough to see but impossible to visit. Daily life on Little Diomede is a study in adaptation. Supplies arrive by helicopter or, in rare, good times, by boat. Children attend school in a building perched on stilts above the permafrost, and elders tell stories of a time when families moved freely between the islands, long before the border hardened. The community's connection to the land and sea is unbroken, even as the world beyond seems impossibly far away. On clear days, residents wave at their Russian counterparts, if anyone is watching, across the ice and water. Every winter, when the sea freezes solidly, the islands are briefly linked by a natural bridge of ice. Old-timers whisper about the midnight messenger, a figure said to appear on the coldest nights, gliding silently from one island to the other, carrying news, hope, or warnings. Some say he's a spirit of the strait, others a memory of the days when families and friends could cross without fear. The legend lingers, a reminder that even here at the edge of the world, stories travel faster than time zones. The Diomede Islands are a curiosity for adventurers and a challenge for logistics. Tourists rarely make the journey, but the islands draw scientists, journalists, and the occasional daredevil hoping to stand with one foot in today and the other in tomorrow. The local economy is built on subsistence hunting, art, and the occasional grant or government contract. The border is both a barrier and a backdrop, shaping lives in ways both subtle and stark. For the people of Little Diomede, the world's most unusual neighborhood is simply home. Wild, right? From time travel in the Bering Strait, let's jet down to a place where crossing the border might mean waiting for a plane to land, literally. This is a place where the runway is the border and your morning commute could be delayed by a 737. You're standing at what might be the world's most surreal border crossing, watching a Boeing 737 taxi directly across the road in front of you. Welcome to La Línea de la Concepción, where the frontier between Spain and Gibraltar isn't just a line on a map. It's an active airport runway. Here, international travel means dodging jet engines, and your morning commute might include a 5-minute delay for an incoming flight from London. The barrier lifts, the plane passes, and suddenly you're walking from Spain into Britain without so much as a passport stamp. Just a faint smell of aviation fuel and the peculiar satisfaction of having crossed one of Europe's oddest borders. Gibraltar International Airport presents a unique engineering challenge. How do you build a runway when your entire territory is barely larger than a small town? The answer, it turns out, is to build it right across the main road. Winston Churchill Avenue, the only land route between Spain and the British territory, cuts directly through the airport tarmac. When planes need to land or take off, traffic stops. Cars, buses, pedestrians, and cyclists all wait patiently behind red and white barriers while commercial aircraft lumber past at eye level, close enough to read the airline logos. For the 15,000 Spanish workers who cross into Gibraltar each day, the airport runway has become part of the rhythm of life. Morning rush hour means checking flight schedules alongside traffic reports. Commuters develop an almost supernatural ability to time their crossings, knowing that the 9:15 from Madrid means a 10-minute wait, while the afternoon EasyJet from Bristol barely causes a hiccup. Cyclists lean against the barriers, chatting in a mixture of Spanish and English, while tourists fumble for cameras, delighted by the absurdity of it all. The casual nature of the La Línea crossing has created its own folklore. During the Franco era, when the border was sealed for 16 years, locals tell stories of El Contrabandista Fantasma, the ghost smuggler, who supposedly used the cover of aircraft noise to slip goods across the frontier. Even today, with the border wide open, old-timers swear they can still hear his footsteps on foggy nights, forever pacing the runway, unable to believe that crossing has become so simple. Whether he's real or just the echo of jet engines bouncing off the rock, the legend persists among those who remember when this border was anything but casual. The runway crossing has become Gibraltar's most photographed tourist attraction, drawing visitors who come specifically to experience the novelty of walking across an active airport. Local businesses have learned to capitalize on the delays. Cafes on both sides offer plane spotting specials, and souvenir shops sell t-shirts reading "Stop Traffic at Gibraltar Airport." The Spanish side has embraced its role as the gateway to this British oddity, with hotels advertising runway views and restaurants timing their lunch specials to coincide with the busiest flight schedules. Residents of La Línea have developed a peculiar relationship with aviation. Children grow up knowing aircraft types by sound alone, and local weather forecasts include runway conditions alongside temperature and humidity. The border guards, perhaps the most patient civil servants in Europe, have perfected the art of crowd control, managing everything from wedding parties trying to cross for ceremonies to emergency vehicles that can't wait for the next flight gap. On busy days, the crossing becomes an impromptu international gathering, where Spanish grandmothers share gossip with British pensioners while Moroccan traders check their phones and German tourists marvel at the organized chaos. So what do all these places have in common? They prove that borders aren't just lines on a map. They're living, breathing stories that shape how we connect, adapt, and even laugh at the absurdity of geography. Whether it's sharing a meal across two countries, racing the clock across the international date line, or waiting for a plane across the road, these border towns remind us that the world is far stranger and far more connected than we ever imagined. Next time you see a border, remember, sometimes the most interesting stories happen right on the line. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribing if you haven't already. Your support really helps the channel grow. And if you want more, check out the next video on screen or visit my socials linked below. See you in next one.